Hi, it's Alexis, the avoidant therapist. Today we will discuss about how our attachment style will influence how we deal with our emotions. If you have an insecure attachment style like myself, whether you're avoidant or anxious, that will affect how you process emotions. And we'll see in this video that this could have an impact on other aspects of your life. Or we'll also explain what will be the upside and the experience of someone who has a secure attachment style on how they regulate their emotion more effectively. Let's start with the definitions. Attachment style, first of all, there are four major attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, fearful. If you're not familiar with those terms, have a look on other videos on my channel. If you know already, well, you're gonna learn even more today. Emotional regulation is how we manage the emotional response. So you have to understand that as animals, we interpret the world with our emotions. So basically, any type of information, any type of trigger, we will use our emotions to make sense of it, right? To interpret that event. And what we discuss in this video, and I'm gonna use the study that will show next slide, is that attachment style influence our emotional regulation strategies. And it starts from childhood and it will impact obviously adulthood. So the idea here is for me to explain that having a secure attachment style, developing a secure attachment style will help you to balance your emotions. So if you feel like nowadays it's been quite difficult on you, you have highs and lows in terms of emotions, it's very hard for you to manage emotions, by developing a secure attachment style, you will influence how you respond to your emotions. And I'm using the study Adult Attachment and Emotional Regulation from Shaver and Mikulinser. Some of their studies are used in the book Attached that I recommend everyone to buy if you haven't. It's really the best book when it comes to attachment style. And when my book will be released, that will be the second book. Stay tuned. So what happens? Emotional regulation and secure attachment style. So what happens when you have a secure attachment style? You're comfortable with closeness and independence. The huge difference between secure attachment style and insecure attachment style is that they will use part of the rational part of their brain. They will become problem solving and support seeking when they're under stress. So obviously, someone who has a secure attachment style, when they're under stress, they will have the fight and flight response. They will go on an automatic response, but very quickly, they'll be able to calm down. So the biggest difference between secure and insecure is the way secure people have the ability to calm down, to reduce the emotional impact, the emotional response, and interpret with their rational part of the brain, right? And so what happens is that they respond calmly to the challenges, to relationship challenges. Calmly, obviously, it doesn't mean that if you have a secure attachment style, you never get upset or you're never sad, but you have the ability to, I often say to my clients, it's about zooming out. Right now, you're in the middle of that situation. Right now, it's very hard to process things. You're in a hurricane. It's very hard because you feel like almost like in a washing machine, right? The secure attached people, they have the ability to get outside of this washing machine and look at things for what they are, okay? And what it does is that here you have a healthy and stable relationship dynamic. The way you interact with your partner, the way you perceive relationship is way more healthy, way more balanced. You have also, that helps you to have the ability to establish healthier boundaries because you know what you want. You're able to zoom out, to look at the situation, to assess or to see the red flags. I don't like this term, but see things that are not working for you because you have this secure attachment, because you have the ability to manage the emotions. The emotions, you have to understand that emotion is just a signal. Most people who haven't been through therapy, who are not aware of those things, they feel that, or they assume that emotions is part of their life. That emotions are dictating how they need to behave. That's the first layer of understanding. The second layer is the signal, pointing to something you should analyze, reflect on, and then it's your job as a human being to use your rational part of the brain to use this signal as part of other piece of information to make the right decision. So now let's talk about the anxious attachment. In the study, they mentioned that there's obviously a deep fear of abandonment. So that's one of the characteristics of anxious people. And what it does, it creates an hyperactivation of the brain area responsible for pain and anxiety. And so that's why you have intense emotions when you have an anxious attachment style. You also, and let me know if you have an anxious attachment style, let me know if that you can relate to this, over-focus on the negative emotions. And over-focus on this idea that I'm going to be rejected. And that's why most anxiously attached people spend a lot of time trying to get the reassurance that the person they're dating, that the person they're seeing will not reject them. And they will seek that validation, that reassurance constantly because deep inside they have this fear. They are hyper vigilant and they will look at any signs that that person will leave them or cheat on them. And so it's very important because when you're under that amount of stress, of hypervigilance, what it does is you create emotional exhaustion. And that's characterized as well when you break up with someone. If you have an anxious attachment style, it's kind of like, I knew it would happen. It's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I knew he or she would reject me. And you have these abandonment wounds open now after this breakup, and that's why it's quite hard for you because you don't have the right emotional regulation system in place. And I'll explain in a second what you should do. Let's talk about avoidant attachment. This is my team, which is characterized by a fear of dependence, a fear of closeness, fear of intimacy. What we do is we use the activation strategies. So in a way, we shut down those emotions. And for many years, I thought that was the best strategy, right? I don't suffer. Right? I don't get involved. I suppress things. I don't even want to consider negative emotions. Not that I'm an optimistic person by default. It's just like, it doesn't matter, right? I don't want to deal with those. And the thing is, when you shut down, when you suppress things, you don't solve anything. When you basically, and it's something, it's really the image that characterized my first 25 years of my life is like sweeping dust underneath the carpet. And you feel like, okay, it's gonna be fine. But what happens when you grow up, when you mature, when you have relationships, you realize that things resurface. And when you're under stress and you don't process your emotions efficiently, what happens is sometimes it will also affect your body. So I had eczema for a very long time as well, because I didn't manage my emotions and I would keep things to myself. This could be that could manifest in other areas of your life, could be work, could be with your relationship, could be, as I said, health and your body, etc. But it's important to understand, if you have an avoidant attachment style, that emotions are not bad in themselves. It's about how we can learn to interpret and process those emotions. Suppressing those emotions won't solve anything. And the fearful-avoidant is obviously the combination of high anxiety and high avoidance. So that's why you have always this ambivalence. They're torn between desire for closeness, fear of rejection. So they go back and forth, go back and forth. It's really based on the deep fear, deep sort of mistrust of people. Have a hard time trusting people, trusting their partner because they've had difficult childhood or difficult relationships in the past where, in a way, when they start a relationship, they crave the closeness, they crave the relationship, but it's very hard for them to open up and to trust the person because they assume that if they love someone, they will get hurt, they will suffer. And the thing is, what happens in the study mentioned that there's this chronic activation of stress, and that usually harms the relationship and harm your health. So again, it's even stronger than anxious because you have highs and lows. And so you combine somehow this thing about avoidant that are suppressing things, so that are bottling up their emotions, and the anxious who have really highs and really high highs and really low lows. And so what's fascinating in this study is that insecure attachment style are linked to chronic stress and mental health challenges. It's proven. Because of the poor emotional regulation strategies. If you don't have strong emotional regulation strategies, you're going to release cortisol in an imbalanced way, and that will affect your immune system. It's very interesting, but people after a breakup usually get sick because they release so much cortisol that they affect their immune system, and they catch the first virus that comes to them. That's why it's important, if you can, to develop a secure attachment style, because that will help you not only on your health, on your mental health, but also develop this element of resilience and adaptability. The problem with relationships is because it's very hard to predict what will happen with your partner. And so you need to remain adaptable. You need to be able, as I discussed, to zoom out, to use your rational part of the brain, to process those information and make the right decision based on what works for you. And therapy can help rewire those insecure patterns. We'll discuss in a second about the stories. That's what it's important to, regardless of your problem, if you have an insecure attachment style, developing a secure attachment style will impact many areas of your life. If you broke up with your partner recently and you have an insecure attachment style, whether it's avoidant or anxious, develop a secure attachment style. You will maximize your chance of creating a second chance with this partner. If you're struggling to date at the moment, if you're single and struggling to date, and you have an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style, developing a secure attachment style will help you deal with that situation. In many areas of your life, if you can manage to develop a secure attachment style, you'll be stronger and more resilient because you'll be able to overcome challenges, especially the ones around relationships, with more strength and more capabilities. But the thing is, the world is full of triggers and we are full of voices. The voices is the things that we are telling ourselves. What you have to understand, so the triggers is the environment, is the things I cannot control when I have when I help clients in my therapy sessions. What we have to do is, okay, what do we do with the environment? What do I do with what's happening to me? How do I choose to interpret a situation? Anxious people, they will think, I'm not good enough, they leave me. And therefore they seek reassurance. Avoidant people, I don't need anyone, they suppress vulnerability. And you have to understand that those voices are often shaped when it's about independence, validation, etc. It's about attachment and emotional patterns. The point here is, as part of therapy, is to recognize those voices, understand that, and that's the value of the content that I'm creating, is that we all have different voices. Your partner has probably different voices than you, and that's why you struggle with the communication. It's because you don't understand these voices, they don't understand yours, and therefore you can't connect at an emotional level because you are speaking two different languages. And so what you have to do is, as part of developing this secure attachment style, is to change the story. The environment, the story we're telling ourselves, and then that will affect our emotions. This is the reality we create. I will react in a fundamental different way to the same situation as someone anxious. You have to recognize that. It's neutral. The situation is neutral. Something happening to us, I would react differently than you, and probably similarly to other avoidant people, but differently than you if you have an anxious attachment style. And so it's about, okay, recognizing those voices and working through, so it's called internal working models, working through those internal working models to develop that secure attachment style, to replace all voices, usually negative. I think it's about 80% of our thoughts are negative towards ourselves. I don't think there's a specific stat around anxious people, but usually most of our thoughts towards ourselves are negative. So it's about recognizing those voices, filtering in and out the ones that are crap, because usually they're based on assumptions, on things that are not real, and rewiring those around things that work for you, around reality, around your skill set, around your strength, around your talent. That's what I do sometimes in therapy sessions, is we start with that. You broke up with a partner, it's very hard, you feel you're worthless. Okay, no. Let's look at your talent, let's look at your qualities. Let's have an assessment, because at the end of the day, your partner chose you. So I guess he or she chose you because of some aspects of your personality. Maybe they broke up with you, but you're fundamentally the same person you were when you started dating them. So it's about, having this assessment and building with proof, with cognitive reappraisal, those stronger narratives that helps you. And when you have those strong narratives, you become more resilient, right? You're not scared anymore to trust your partner, to start a new relationship, to even break up if the relationship doesn't work for you. It's a superpower. So how do we heal insecure attachment? I see three major elements. So that the three things I leverage with my clients. The cognitive element, so as I discussed, is you identify, you acknowledge your attachment style. So probably know a lot watching my videos. But the cognitive element is not enough, unfortunately, because there's also the emotional aspect of it. It's not because you know smoking is bad for you that you're going to be able to stop smoking tomorrow. It's about the emotional response. It's about the primitive part of our brain dealing with the situation. So that's why there's also an emotional element around self-soothing, emotional regulation technique. And the third element, which I think it's a dynamic thing, it's about practice, basically. It's about building trust. So if you're single, around dating, if you're in a relationship, building trust, having effective communication tools, being consistent. I call it creating the secure base with your partner. When people start to work with me, they have questions of whether they should get back with their ex, whether it makes sense to try, whether they should move on. And they have the assumption that they didn't know about attachment style and that they could change a little bit how they behave in the relationship. If you develop that secure attachment style from a relationship that was anxious avoidant, regardless of you're avoidant or anxious, if you develop a secure attachment style and you start that relationship with that mindset, with that approach, you will change the dynamic of your relationship for sure. And that will create that dynamic where your partner will feel safer. That doesn't mean necessarily that it's the right relationship for you, but it's the starting point. That's what I do with my clients, is like the starting point is we create that secure base and we test if it's working out for their partner. If it's not, it means that this person is not willing to do the work. He's not willing to give you what you want. And it's very important because sometimes we're confused. We feel it's because of my fault, it's because of what I've done. Okay. Do what you have to do. Create the right conditions. Right? If this person is important to you, he or she will recognize the work that you're doing. He or she will admit that they did things wrong or they were wrong or that they need to do some work, etc., etc. Otherwise, if they don't show up, if they don't invest, if they don't commit, they are simply not the right partners for you. If you have any questions on this, if you're confused, if you want to know more about that secure base, have a look in the description. There's a link to book a call with me. I'll see you next time. I hope that was helpful. And I will put also the link of the study in the description. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.